standing in here in a building that once housed hundreds of people in the town of Dallas working. This town was covered with mills. Now these mills are all left behind. Just like a lot of people have been left. Adventure's coming. These bars and all the labor that took place in these buildings is about to change. It's going to be a different kind of labor, a different kind of vision, a different kind of future. This place is going to be a different kind of place altogether. And the result is going to be a different kind of place out there. This building's not about us. It's not for us. It's got no intention for us. But everything outside of these bars is about to get the gospel because of what comes here. It's a hub. It's a place of synergy and expansion. It's a place for your dreams, your visions to come alive and explode into this region. So we're going to rip these bars off. We're going to pull these pipes out. We're going to clean these floors up. We're going to paint these walls. And we're going to bring life into something that's died. That's what it's about. To explode into this community with light, to be light in the darkness, to have the community want to be here and a community that wants us to be there. That's what the hub is all about. And I can't wait to get into this thing. Let's go, man, go.
You ready? You got no voice. Oh, man, y'all sound dead. Are y'all ready? There we go. Good gosh. Oh, man, I'm the one that's sick. Oh, man, I'm so glad you guys are here. And I'm going to have to speak from this side of the stage because right when the service got started, we lost that side of the stage. So all the lights went out. So I'm just going to drag it over here, all right? So we're just going to be a little lopsided. This morning, I am so pumped to be able to be here this morning to share with you the next phase of what we feel God has called us into in the hub, as well as a long-term plan. In just a few minutes, we're going to show you a floor plan on that. If you're a guest, you're probably going, why am I here? This sounds like a church business meeting. Hopefully by the second round of cheer, you realize it's not a church business meeting. Now, the first round might have scared you, but the second round, hopefully you're going, hey, there's something going on here. The hub is a vision. It is a vision of ministry that happens to need a place to be. And so before we get into this thing, I want you to understand something. Hey, check that out. Sweet. Dave Watts is going to figure it out, brother. So I didn't even know we had those. Nice. So here's something that is absolutely essential for us, okay? We bought 13 and a half acres on New Hope Road, and it's bordered by New Hope Road and Main Street. Most of you think Main Street is Trade Street and Trade Street's Main Street, but anyway, we bought 13 and a half acres in a 51,000 square foot building there that we call the hub. We bought that for a specific reason. And before I get into anything, I want to make sure, beyond of a shadow of a doubt, that we understand what that reason is. And so the only thing that I've gave you for notes this morning is this statement, all right? It's in your bulletin, and we didn't even leave it up to chance for a blank to be filled in, all right? This is something that we as a ministry cannot mess up, all right? We cannot mess up what I'm about to say here. The hub is not a place for Christians to meet, all right? It is a home base for the ministries that will radically change the physical, emotional, intellectual, economic, and spiritual landscape of the region around it. The difference is huge. If you don't know what the difference is, if you stick with us long enough, you'll understand the difference. The difference between a building for a community organization for Christians and a building for people who see themselves as a movement for the glory of God to bring the gospel to lives and change them. The difference is huge, all right? So, one of the ways we do that is this. Everything we do in it must be measured by this standard. If the building burnt down, would anybody in the community care? All right? If the building burns down, will anybody in that region of the world care that Venture no longer has a building? All right? They don't care if that building is for us. But if that building is primarily used as a place of synergy, a launch pad of ministry into a community, that physically changes what that community looks like, what it experiences, how life happens in that community, then two things are happening. One, Jesus Christ is being glorified, and that's the only thing we care about. And then second, that community is being changed and drawn to God. Christians who keep saying God loves the world now have some validity to their speech. In the American church right now, I love this thing. In the American church right now, we have no validity to that at all. None. We spend hundreds of millions of dollars into the billions of dollars in American churches on things that are exclusively for us that we then try to use for the world. We want to have things that can be used for the world, and if we can use them, great. All right? That is a totally different philosophy. Most churches that are in urban environments, that are in the hood, so to speak, are trying to get out of it. This church feels God calling us into it, all right? These are different concepts altogether. Now, what is the community like around it? I want to read some stats to you. I'm not going to really give any comment on it, but I want to just share some things as a reminder of why 800 East Main Street in Dallas. Why did we go there? I want you to read these with me on the screen. All right, and by the way, I forgot this part. We know that people are more likely to want to die than to speak in public. And so we want you to ask questions this morning. And so today is the day that you get to have your cell phone on, all right? And so what we want you to do is, if you have a question of any sort whatsoever, all right, you can send a text. We've got some of our trustees are back on a computer, and they'll receive that text. So send a text to 24587. And then in your text, write the word venture and then your question, all right? So send it to 24587, write the word venture and then your question, and or your comment or whatever. And at the end, I'm going to take those questions, and they'll be as much a surprise to me as they will be everybody else, because our trustees are going to put them on the screen, and then I'm going to answer them, all right? So with that, we're going to keep going on. I'm going to get a cough drop going here, about losing my voice. I went to the Virginia Tech game yesterday. I promise I didn't lose my voice because of that. I actually didn't say anything. We have the bubonic plague going through my house right now, so our entire house sounds like a TB ward. So anyway, listen to these stats. There are over 21,000 people that live within 3 miles of the hub, 800 East Main Street. The number swells to over 62,000 people at 5 miles, making it centrally located to this region. The highest percentage of those living in the 3 and 5 mile radius around the hub are in the age groups that best relate to this style of ministry. Most churches are built to reach senior adults. This church, and that's when I say most, over 90% of American churches are strategically built to reach senior adults. This church is built to reach the most lost generation in American history, ours. The difference between the two is staggering. And so this church is strategically designed to do that. We reach seniors as well because they love seeing their grandkids and their children come to Christ. But this church is targeted at the most lost group of people in American history. And as I look around the room, it's mostly our generation that is in this room. Second, the education level is considered in that area, in that 3 mile radius and 5 mile radius from East Main Street. Based on the 2010 census, the education level is considered extremely low. Within a 3 mile radius, only 11% of those over the age of 25 have a college degree. And within 5 miles, only 15% have one. This is not a judgment on those who don't have one. It's just statistics show this. Both of these figures are way below the national average and directly impact the economic potential of the area. Where is that seen, how it's impacting that? That's the next stat. In both the 3 and 5 mile radius, the amount of people living on a total household income of less than $15,000 a year is 52% higher than the national average. The national average for the amount of people living in a community under $15,000 a year is here, and in 3 mile and 5 mile radius around the hub, it's here. It is 52% higher than the national average. The number of households within 3 miles comprised of a single woman. One of the leading causes of poverty in America is to be a single mom. The number of households within 3 miles comprised of a single woman with children is 41.8% higher than the national average. And 5 miles, it's 54.9% above the national average. So in a typical community in the nation, the average is here of the amount of single moms there are. In our community, it's here, within 3 miles and 5 mile radius of the hub. For all those in women's ministry, you should start dreaming dreams right now. For all those in men's ministry, guess what? If we had more men, not in numbers, but in quality, we wouldn't have that stat. Next, and last, in both the 3 and 5 mile radius, the concerns in the community, all right, this was in the 2010 survey of the national census. In the 3 and 5 mile radius around the hub in the town of Dallas, where there's churches everywhere, the concerns of the community that exceeded the national average at the highest level were these: finding spiritual teaching, which amazes me; finding a good church; problems in schools; teen and child problems; day-to-day financial worries; and this one, which I'm sure all of us can relate to, right? Adequate food. And I say that tongue-in-cheek because as I look around the room, I don't see any of us that fit in the category that we are looking, that we have a concern for adequate food in our lives. Most of us are trying to figure out what not to eat, right? That's me. I'm always going, oh, I'm not supposed to eat that. So that's the community. That's the community we're trying to reach. That's the community that we feel called into. That's the region. It's not the only place. It's just the first place. Our vision as a church is to satellite out in the communities around this region and do the same exact thing. But you got to start somewhere. And we felt God calling us to this one first. Our vision is a satellite campus of church with multi-services. So with that said, I'm going to tell you something that sounds like I've completely contradicted everything I've said in the first 7 minutes this morning. And I know it's 7 minutes because I got my timer on, all right? I'm going to confuse the daylights out of some of you, all right? And I'm going to share something with you that is a radical shift for us as a ministry in our thinking and our planning. It fits perfectly in our vision, but it is a shift from what you have heard me say over the last year. And it has come with much prayer, much fasting, a tremendous amount of time talking to other churches and ministries and people that have done this. What is that shift? You ever seen a cat in a bag? You know, it's so we just figured we'd go ahead and let the cat out of the bag, all right? We feel this way as a core team. For us to move forward in that vision and change that community that we just talked about, for us to be the kind of church that's going to impact that, we feel a major change is going to have to happen as a ministry in our vision for the hub. And it's this, all right? In order to move the ball forward, the elders and trustees feel the next phase of the hub needs to include a space for us to do our Sunday morning worship gatherings in. We do not think it can be here any longer. You can go ahead and clap if you want to. That's cool. God has blessed us with this. We could not do worship anymore at Hardin. We were out of space. Our children's workers threatened to kill us. There were kids crammed into every corner over here in that children's area. We were out of space, but we did not want to spend a ton of money building out a building that was not strategically located for the vision that God has given us for missions. And so God gave us the opportunity here. This opportunity has bore fruit into other ministries. There's a church called Elevation that's starting their first worship service in Gaston County this morning at Forest High School. If Venture had not been here for the last 2 years, there could be no Elevation at Forest. I'm not taking credit for what God's doing there, but this county was completely resistant to anybody using their facilities. And we have very white-gloved and very sensitively and very quietly worked through the system to get to a place where this county was willing to give a lease to a church to worship and be willing to renew that lease if that church was following the rules of their lease. That has totally been completely not a possibility. And so because you have been faithful to the Lord, because you have not been what most churches do and want to get lawyers and sue everybody, because we prayed it through and God gave us favor with people in high places and allowed this to happen, doors have opened for the expansion of the kingdom. And I'm proud of that in a right way. But we think the season's up. We think God has brought us here for a season to allow us to do some changes. And now we're going to go to the next season. I want to show you what we call phase 2 In reality, it's probably 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, all right? And then I'm going to show you what we call phase 1, all right? So I'm going to start with 2, and then I'm going to go to phase 1. Phase 1 being what we need to do first. So let me show you phase 2 real briefly and give you an idea of what we're talking about as a vision, all right? That's kind of hard to see this. I apologize, but we didn't want to spend a whole lot of money on three-dimensional architectural plans yet. All right, so wow, it really fades out a lot. So currently our offices are down here. If you've been to the hub, there's where the offices are. This is Trade Street, and this is Main Street, and New Hope Road is on the other side out here. This is the current parking lot, and you can see a lovely thing right here, right? Just imagine it with me. And but this section of the building is where the sportsman banquet was. Who went to the sportsman banquet? Anybody? All right, so now you're with me on where. This was the sportsman banquet section. This is a long-term concept. The reason why it's a concept is because it can change, but we wanted to make sure it was a good enough concept that if we do change our mind as we move into this thing, that we don't have to tear stuff down that we've already built, all right? So on the right side of this space, the lines are gone, but those are actually the deals. But anyway, we've been talking since the very beginning that this upper right-hand corner would be our high school, middle school student center, where students could come from high school and middle school and be there after school, that they could get tutoring, the whole shoot and match. That's still our long-term vision. This section was where we were planning on putting Crisis Pregnancy Center. But the moment we could not guarantee to Crisis Pregnancy Center that we would not worship in this building, they backed out. That's a part of their policy. They will not put a pregnancy center in a building where there's a worship service. You know, that's their organization. They have to make the decisions that they feel are right for their organization. So they backed out, but they still have a heartbeat to come to Dallas, and we're still working with them to do that, all right? Our women, if you want to get plugged in, we have 20-some women that are trained and volunteer as counselors and work and serve at Crisis Pregnancy Center. So we're still very much committed in that. But we're now talking about some different concepts for that space. Up front, we were originally working with Dallas High Souls Ministry. We announced them. We continue to support them and partner with them. But they have took some different directions on the space that we're looking for. Meanwhile, there's vision birthing in this body. And so crazy old Ronnie Maynard came up with this idea for some stuff and some other people, some things. And next thing we know, there's clothes in here and food in here and all kind of craziness is going on. And so we're really envisioning your dreams and visions in those areas kind of pouncing themselves out in this space. There's a wall right here. So we're really excited about that. How many have ever been to Bethlehem Church? Anybody been in that building? All right, if you walk into that building, there's a humongous corridor right down the middle. Real simple space, a gigantic hallway, and you can do anything in it. That's a gigantic hallway, you can do anything in it, all right? And so that entrance at that point will be on that side of the building facing New Hope Road, which is currently treed. Our trustees are going to be trying to, they're going to be taking bids for somebody to pay us to take all those trees, as well as eventually that big old gigantic tower out there. So that'll eventually be the front entrance. It'll face New Hope Road, and you'll have this corridor that after school program come out here and eat, or preschool program come out here and eat, and have a kitchen, blah, 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 blah. All right, this section. These are classrooms that can be used immediately for our preschool and after school program and our summer daycare program, effective immediately the moment we get there. We want them under the roof so the families that we're ministering to are families that we can engage with the gospel as well. And so these are being designed so they'll meet all of the standards that have to be met for you to have that. They also provide the space for us to do English as a second language, classes for moms that look at Debbie Clark and the ideas that she's had. It just goes on and on, the different visions and ideas that you guys have had that you want to do there to try to reach the community. That's what those spaces are intended for. This is an 800-seat auditorium up here that runs this direction. It's an 800-seat auditorium as a max capacity in that building. Our vision is multi-campus, multi-satellite. I don't know that we'll ever build an 800-seat auditorium, but we have the ability to do it. Our vision, I would rather have a bunch of 400-seat auditoriums all over that people are meeting in a closer proximity than a big gigantic Grambling that we ask everybody to come to. And so remember, our idea is to multiply the hub concept out all across this region. And so, but this gives us the ability to get that big, and if we fill that up in multiple services, how awesome would that be that we're reaching so many people locally that we fill up an 800-seat auditorium 4 or 5 times a weekend, and we need to build a bigger one? Guess what? We can't can. We got 13.5 acres. Is that on the plan? No, it's a waste of time now. All right, so, all right, now that's phase 1. I mean, 2, what do we do first? If you'll notice, if you can watch how this slide transitions, and go ahead, everything in the first phase is the first part of the second. So there's nothing built here that has to be changed there. The classrooms that would go out here come off of this wall, all right? The auditorium expands this direction. The only thing that we lose is the wall that blocks it out. You got to build the wall. We don't have an option there. This is at max a 400-seat auditorium. That could be reduced as we work on the stage. The entrances and everything. The entrance is going to be on the side here. It's going to be compact, and it's not going to be fun transition at 9:30 and 11. But we have to build minimal. All right. We don't have a lot of money. Simple as that. God's got it, and it's in our pockets. We just aren't really giving it yet. So what we got to do is get in here in the most minimal way possible. So yeah, it's going to be a tight transition, but it's going to be fun. You'll meet people every Sunday, all right? So we're going to have to expand our parking. You have to have 1 parking place for every 3 people in attendance, and we only have 66 parking places. That's going to be a matter of prayer. Parking is extremely expensive, like outrageously expensive. And so churches are allowed to apply for a variance to run gravel, and we're going to apply for that variance. And I'm trying to break that thing. And so that's going to be a matter of prayer that we'll get to when the time comes. So this is our floor plan. The worship service area where we do our worship gatherings, we are going to be talking to consultants. That's one area that, we're not going to do a Cadillac, but we believe our generation is a multimedia generation. It is going to be a multi-purpose auditorium. Everybody say multi-purpose. Not a gym, all right, because we only got a 12-foot roof, and so it's not going to work. But it's a multi-purpose auditorium. If you've ever been into a large hotel that has a dining area, a banquet hall, just kind of imagine how they use those banquet halls. We'll be able to do our after-school programming for high school and middle school students right away. We'll be able to do all kinds of things. You just got to go in there and change the room around. So there's no permanent seating in it. You set the chairs up, you set tables up, you tear them down, you move it around. And so that's a multi-purpose auditorium, multifunctional. We could do our dental clinic concepts have been coming down, the medical clinic things. All kind of events can be held. We just got to go in there and rearrange chairs, take them down, set them back up, whatever we want to do. Now, the other part of that is I believe our generation, the main tool of communication in our generation is media. And so we're going to be talking with companies. We've already contacted one in Rock Hill that's considered one of the experts in the country, as a matter of fact. And we use them to buy this stuff. But we're already speaking with them. We want to make sure that that building, that stage is going to outfit us in the years to come to be able to grow with the creativity and the media tools that we use to communicate. We want to go forward with that, not backwards. And we think that creates an environment where our generation walks in and goes, okay, I'll listen. And so that is our design. All these lights and rock music and the stuff flashing around is because most of our generation thinks church is the most boring thing they've ever heard of in their life. And when they come in the door at Venture, we want to first grab them so they'll go, I'll come back. We want their kids to say, Mom, if you don't come back, I'm going to annoy you all day. All right, so that is our goal with what we do, and we're not going to compromise on that. We actually want to move forward. Now, that's the plan. Remember, if you have questions, you can text them to 24587. Put the word Venture in there and then write the question out. I would encourage you to do that. Now, why the auditorium? Very quickly. Why this auditorium? First of all, let me say this. Life groups do not need to see those rooms as an opportunity for them to meet. Remember, everything that happens in that place needs to be about the community. And your life group, if it's not there doing something for that community, to minister to that community, should be meeting in a home or your workplace or a dining hall somewhere, a dinner, somewhere that you're doing life. That's the purpose of our life groups. All right, so we're not building a place for Christians to meet. But it is a place for your life group to see an opportunity to come in and serve as a mission opportunity. So I can come in there and our life group can dream this vision. Right now at the Hub, there's all kind of things going on already. There's a life group that really just said, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to start cooking hot dogs and showing movies. And they're meeting people all over the place and leading people to Christ. We're already baptizing folks that they've been winning to Jesus, serving hot dogs and showing movies down at the Hub. Those are the kind of reasons why the Hub exists. Next week is a thing called the Hub Club. All your kids are welcome. Bring them. But you're supposed to be bringing your neighbor's kids with them as well. All right? Come out to the Hub Club. It's a great student event for kids. The information's in your bulletin. And that is being, again, driven by life groups. All right? So that's what we have as a vision here, as life groups dream and envision how they can impact the community. The hub is there to serve that. It is not a place for us to just come and meet. We have hundreds of millions of dollars tied up in our houses. Use them. If you added up the value of our homes and the restaurants that we eat at, we don't need to build something to replicate that. Amen? Let's build something that matters to the community. Now, with that said, why an auditorium? 2 reasons. Number one, the obvious, we feel really, really good that if our worship is in that building, we're going to be a lot more effective in our mission vision in that community. We really believe that we're going to be able to create more vision, energy, volunteerism, and increase the overall impact into the community. We really believe that by worshiping there, you're going to be there every week, seeing that building, seeing that opportunity, and it's going to inspire dreams and visions in you that you can launch out. As you reach people through those dreams and visions, then they're going to have a natural place to come and worship. Our goal is not to hand out a piece of clothing or give out a piece of food. Those are tools to give out the gospel. Those are tools to be clear that we do love and we do care. And so when I say God loves you, it doesn't sound like a conflict of interest, all right? But the goal is the Great Commission, and that is the gospel. And so we think worshiping there is really going to give us the opportunity to expound on that, as well as space to do a lot of other activities. So that's the first reason, and really the most strategically important reason on why we think we need to begin working towards having a worship service there. Services. And it's going to be services, all right? Never just going to be one. Our multiple services give us an incredible opportunity for volunteerism, and there's a lot of you that can only come at 9:30 anyway. Now, second, the money. One reason is philosophy. Second reason is money. Philosophies can change. Unfortunately, money doesn't. Money is the real hard gut issue here. Now, there is a positive and a negative financial reason on why we've got to do this. I'm going to first give you the bad news, and then I'm going to hopefully cheer you back up with the good one, all right? The bad news is this. We're currently upside down at the hub financially. Upside down means it's worth less than what we owe by a significant margin. I want to give you a very quick history, and when I say quick, it's going to take me a couple minutes. That's it. Before we bought that property, we consulted with some people, commercial appraiser, so forth and so on. And everybody was telling us that building was incredibly underpriced, and it was a great buy. We bought that building with the philosophy that we could carve off some of that land eventually and sell it. We still have that philosophy, but you can't just do that arbitrarily. We don't want to sell off land that we later need, so that's a part of our planning process still. But nonetheless, we were told that that building and land was significantly worth more than it was being sold for, and we were given reasons why it was being sold less. Turns out that's not true. Right now, we bought that building and land for $865,000. This church raised $130,000 in a little over a month to put down on that. We went to closing with that money. We got a 3-year loan on a 20-year amortization schedule. We currently owe $713,000 on it. When that 3 years is done, we will owe $180,000 at our current payment schedule. We'll owe $180,000 more than it's worth. Meaning, when that 3 years is up and we have to refi, we're going to be upside down. Right now, we're $213,000 upside down. Somebody will say, were we swindled? Was this intentional? That's for God to judge, not me. I promise you I did not preach last week's sermon knowing I was getting ready to say this. Last week's sermon was planned almost a year ago. I lay out my sermons a year in advance. I'm going to be preaching this text on this particular Sunday, and the big idea is that. And I'm going to spend all this week planning out next year's sermons, all right? So I had no idea that I was going to be preaching. If someone takes your tunic, then give them your cloak as well, or whichever direction that thing went. We translated to contemporary. If someone takes your shirt, give them your underwear. I don't know who would want my underwear, but that's the literal meaning of the deal. So were we hoodwinked? Don't know. Not my deal. God's judge. I'll say this, we as a core team, it was a hard pill to swallow when we saw that. But I can say for me, God has dealt with my heart, and I'm as happy as a lark, and here's why. Did we pay too much for the property? Well, obviously, yes. We got an official appraisal in that we knew the results before it came, but it landed on my desk 2 weeks ago. The building and property is worth $500,000. We paid $865 for it. Did we pay too much? Well, that's kind of obvious, yes. Are we in the best location possible in the town of Dallas? Absolutely. We could not be in a better building, in a better location in the town of Dallas or the surrounding region. God has blessed us with an incredible spot. So we can get hung up on we pay too much, or we can get excited about that the only building left in Dallas is not falling in as far as mills go. We got it. The only other piece of property large enough to handle a church and a ministry like we want is on the wrong side of town and is about 5 times more expensive than what we paid. So we got the best piece of property and the best building in the region. That's where we need to hang our hat. Whether or not we got hoodwinked or not, that's not the point. God's judge. He's sovereign. He'll supply. We stitched our face back up, and it healed up, and we're ready to roll. Now, that's the negative financial reason on why we've got to build. Banks are telling us that they do not really consider skin in the game for a church to be what we were hoping to originally do, and that was build out a little bit by little with volunteers, and as we got the cash, build a piece and build another room and another room and another room and keep giving opportunity for things to grow. That was the plan. That plan is out the door now because we can't refinance a building that's worth less than what we owe. So it's got to be significantly upgraded to be able to refinance that thing and move forward. That's the negative reason. What's the positive reason financially? Believe it or not, there is actually a positive financial reason in this. You're going, what? I'm creative. Watch how this works. All right. The positive is this. We currently pay $800 a month at Dallas Wesleyan to have our preschool and after-school program. We pay over $5,000 a month to lease this place. It was a cost of doing business. We couldn't grow anymore without it. We pay over $5,000 a month on a mortgage for the hub. In other words, we're about $12,000 a month of payments that you and I have been making with our tithes and offerings for the last year. If you do an amortization schedule on, I just put a random figure in, I put $2 million at a certain interest rate, it's less than what we pay every month. So we can make the payments. We've been doing it. The positive thing is when we stop paying the school system and we stop paying where we put our preschool, all that money goes into the hub and we radically grow our financial investment in that place. That's a very positive reason, all right? Some people say, why didn't we do it sooner? Well, we couldn't. We just now got the plans down. It took 6 months to get the zoning straight on the thing, right? So this North Gaston provided an opportunity for us to get to the place where we could do these plans and be ready to do this. This has been a great cost of doing business, and we've reached hundreds of people in the 2 years we've been here that we probably would not have reached otherwise. And for that, that's worth our tithes and offerings being tied up in this building. Amen? It's important that we understand God's called us to give. Period. Whether or not we owe money or don't owe money, we're all supposed to be giving. And then we use all of those funds to reach people as best we can. And that's what we've been doing. I'm really excited about that. And so with that said, remember you can text that deal to 24587. I want you to text a question. We're going to get to those questions very quickly. But I want to end with this. What do we need to do? We need to give. It's going to cost a lot of money. How much money? Don't know yet. All we have is wild guesses at this point. Currently, we have Blake Harris and Chris Mintz, 2 of our trustees, are working with the banks. Brent Boone, who we're recommending to you as a trustee, is going to run point with our contractors. On Friday, we are meeting with a bunch of general commercial contractors that are commercially licensed general contractors. We're meeting with them to give them the floor plans of da-da-da-da. We have our architect. This is going to be a design-build process. And so our goal is within a month. That's our goal. It might be 2, might be whatever. But our goal is in a month to come back with it's going to cost this much. We want to use this bank. Here's how we're going to finance it. All right. We may come back in a month and go, we got to raise $500,000 for any bank to talk to us. Don't know that yet. We're working on it. We may come back and say, we got a bank. They're ready to loan us the money. Let's go, man, go. My personal goal is that we will be in the hub worshiping with those rooms up and running and everything moved by the end of our lease on this building, which is the end of next August. That's my personal goal. I'm going to diligently work with our leaders to get to that point. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to how we pray, how we give, and how we volunteer. We have gone to different churches and different groups that have built in mills. We've looked at them, that have revitalized these buildings, It's a great opportunity for those of you who know how to swing a hammer, run a power cord, do every kind. The only thing apparently they're going to let me do is pick up stuff and carry it in the door. But if we do volunteers, we can cut this cost tremendously. All right? So pray, give, be ready to volunteer. We're going to talk to you more about that. We'll be making a formal presentation to the church on cost and later. We have estimates from the architect, but I'd rather just not even share that with you yet because he himself is not a contractor. He's guessing on a per dollar, per square foot deal. We'd rather get the contractors in there to really let us know what that's going to cost, and then we'll come back to you with a better estimate of that. All right, but it's definitely within reach what we're being told, and so I want to encourage you on that level. So pray, give, start volunteering, and then look and then listen to this last piece, and we're going to field questions. Those of you on the setup and tear down team here, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Don't give up. I know you're tired. Don't give up. When we get to the hub, instead of setting up and tearing down, all you dudes with bones through your nose and tattoos on your face are going to be our greeters. Right? All you tough, hardcore guys that do our setup, y'all going to be the greeters. And when a man walks into the hub, he's going to go, wow, men attend this church. Going to be the first person they meet. Some dude that goes, yo. All right. So I'm looking forward to getting you guys involved in other areas of this ministry. But don't give up. Don't quit. Let's finish strong. We need more children's workers and nursery workers. When we get to that place, listen, guys, you go down to Southeast Dallas after school, and you watch how many buses it takes for the children that live on about 3 blocks to get down there. There's more buses going into 3 roads than go into the entire town of Dallas. Now, that's not a statistic, but that's an observation. There are tons of kids down in that community that we can reach for the gospel. You don't think we're going to need volunteers? You're crazy. When we move to the hub, it's not going to be a lessening of our volunteer effort. It's going to be an increase of our volunteer effort. It's just not going to be setting up and tearing down on Sunday. You with me? So don't give up. If you want to serve now and get in the habit of serving, start. All right? We all need to be volunteering and serving. And I hope you'll help these guys out. So with that, I want to be able to field some questions. And I'm going to keep an eye on my clock here. It just went away. I want to try to fill some questions, and then we're going to just pray and worship together and have a great time of celebrating. So go ahead and fire what we got up here, and let's see question number 1. What's it going to be? How does the church hope to grow in media and technology? This is we hope to figure this one out. That's our first one. And so this is our first time using this, so bear with us. This is going to be a great thing for us down there. I'm going to try to tie this in with some sermons down the road, where we might do some Q&A over what I'm teaching, actually, in the service. So how does the church hope to grow in media and technology? One is a deal that as you can tell, the way that we use our video and stuff is to inspire you, to get you ready for the sermons. We use it to try to inspire you with vision. That's my brother-in-law is our video guy, but we also have people like David Watts and Stephen Smith who does our podcast, and so people are going to that and watching our sermons. A lot of people that watch these messages on the web do not attend church and are not even from around here, and so it's been a really cool ministry. We know that some of you use it with guests, people you're trying to invite to come. You show that to them. But we also want to be able to create an environment on Sunday mornings and have the flexibility to change that. So if you can imagine a stage that's not run by curtains and hardware, but a stage that is run by graphics and media. And the upfront cost can be a little higher, but the long-term cost is a lot cheaper because then we dictate what everything looks like by the push of a button. And so that's part of the vision. If you can imagine a stage that's one big gigantic screen in the back, and we create an environment. We speak through media, and so we want to be able to speak that well. Too often the church has had a habit in America of being 20 years behind how a culture communicates. I want to be ahead. And so we want to be able to match that. So that's part of that vision, and to create an environment on that platform for us to be able to do that and change it as culture changes. And I've always said one day you may come in here, we do rock music now. If culture shifts to some kind of other thing, then we'll do it. If I find out I got to dress up like Barney to preach, it's going to be hard. You know, but if I find out people in Groves will come to Jesus if I look like Barney, then I guess I'll just look like Barney, you know. And so whatever, if I will not wear a toupee. All right. So, all right. Are we open to partner ideas for the hubs? I'm assuming that's in nonprofits. Absolutely. We want to continue that. One of the ladies that we're really excited about has a ministry. It just left me. I always get it by the wrong name. Brilliant Minds. She does a Sylvan Learning Center model, except she does it for free. And a lot of people want to send their kid to a place like Sylvan Learning Center, but they can't afford it, especially those that live in lower income communities. So she's done a phenomenal job, but she has not been able to find a permanent place to do that doesn't cost her an arm and a leg. So we still want to speak with her and work that out. There are other ministries like that. That's a part of the philosophy of this space, is that we can find ministries that we really believe in what they're doing, that we think it's going to be effective, and then provide them the space for that. We're currently working with Hope for Gaston. We're going to grow in our partnership with Hope for Gaston. Anybody heard of Hope for Gaston? Some of you? It's phenomenal ministry. It was started by Bethlehem, but it's been networked with a lot of other churches at this point. It's kind of become its own thing. And so we're going to continue partnering with them and looking forward to that as well. All right, that's another question. How can the youth help now to bring the vision of the hub closer to completion? Man, these are awesome. Okay, when we say youth, we're talking about high school and middle school students. Right now, I think what we tend to do is we tend to look for, in the traditional model of the church, ministry happened this way. There's a chain of command and a budget, and the church fights over that budget, and who's going to get the money. All right, and I have all these committees to make sure it's all fair, and that's what ends up in a fight, because life's not fair. And then when you realize that, then everything gets along a lot better. All right, so they have all these committees trying to make it fair, and that never works because nothing's fair. And so there's this silo effect of it. There went all the lights. All right, so there's a silo effect. I can't wait to have our own building where we don't have to trust these things anymore. All right, so there's a silo effect. What we're trying to inspire is this. We want to see life groups dream dreams and get involved themselves and just get it done. There's a group of guys filling up one of our vans that are here every Sunday. It's a group of guys that are going through some struggles in their life, live down in Southeast Dallas. They're here every Sunday on that van. Great bunch of guys, awesome dudes. A couple of them come to Christ. Awesome guys, no car, no transportation. Guess how they're here? They're here because a life group started hanging out down there, meeting people, building relationships, realized they wanted to go to church, couldn't get there. So they start driving them, and they said, is it okay to use the church van? I was like, is it okay? It's not okay if you don't. Like, for crying out loud, use it. Otherwise, it's sitting there dry rotting, you know? So when it comes to student ministry, that's the same approach that we want to have, is our student ministry coming up with ideas and visions and dreams of how they can get involved, interacting with the students in that community and ministering to the children in that community. I'm telling you, the whiteboard is blank. All right, it's blank. There is nothing on there in the way. And so our student ministry, Chase and his workers are going to be coming up with ideas to do that, as well as our children's ministry. We want our children to get involved. I do not want to raise up another generation of consumers. All right? We have every church in America, the people in church stand here doing this. What are you going to do for me? We want to raise up a generation of students in this ministry that go, here's what we're going to do for you. And so Holly has got a hard lean towards coming up with some ideas where our children will be involved. Now, are we going to turn them loose walking down the streets? Absolutely not. Remember, Holly and parents are coming up with these ideas, but we want them to get involved as well, and this will be an opportunity for that. All right. Are there environmental concerns at the hub? We have done a phase 2 environmental study already, and we passed with flying colors. And so to our knowledge, there are no environmental concerns, and we have done what is reasonably expected to demonstrate that. So we have crossed that hurdle. Check. Thank the Lord for that. All right. How long do you guess it will be till we move into that building for Sunday mornings? All right. My goal is August of next year. That's my personal goal. That may not be God's plan. All right. Our personal goal is to work towards getting in that building at the end of August when this lease is up. All right, so everything we're doing is going to be towards that effort. But if the bank says you got to raise $500,000 up front, it really ain't gonna matter. Now, I'm not saying that because we've got any hint that we will, all right? So don't go home and say, we gotta raise $500,000. I have no hint at all from the banks over what we're gonna have to do. But I'm certain they're gonna ask us to raise a certain amount of money up front, right? We all agree on that? So we won't be able to move forward until we get that done, and that's gonna really dictate a lot of that. All right, next. And by the way, our trustees have saved a considerable amount of money this year. We cut $100,000 out of our budget. Almost $70,000 of that was just in personnel alone. We had people go part-time. We had contract workers give up their contract. All of us gave up money, substantial amounts of it. And as a result, we've been putting money away. I think at one point this summer, our trustees were able to put away, Chris, was it $20,000 in 6 weeks? So 6 weeks over the summer, we were able to save $20,000. That don't sound like a lot, but up until this year, every summer we went in the hole. This summer we actually saved with the purpose of putting money away because we knew this is coming. So that's a really good thing. It's created an environment where literally we're making sure we don't buy paper clips unless we can afford it. So that's a really good environment to be in. All right, what about the expenses we have put into improving the Noga Auditorium? Another great question. When we went into this thing, our vision was to give this stuff to North Gaston. Everything you see in here that actually works is ours. Everything that doesn't work is theirs. All right, literally, we had to replace most of the light bulbs in this room. The county had not replaced those. We fixed almost 200 seats. One man almost did all of them himself. Some other volunteers came and did other that were broke. There was no money to fix those. We fixed them. All the stage lighting, the sound is all ours. The county told us when we negotiated they would not allow us to permanently install it because they would not allow us to give it to the school. That's the county policy. I would love to give this stuff to the school. They need it. And there's no hope that North Gaston is going to get anything. But as it sits today, they're not going to allow it. Now, the positive for us is we don't have to buy any more stuff. We don't have to replace, we're going to need a few different things for sure. We're going to have to do some purchases. But we will take everything that we brought here and move it there. So that's one expense we won't have to endure. And unfortunately, North Gaston High School will return to what it once had, nothing. And so that's where that is. All right, guys, here's what I want to do. Our time's up this morning. I'm going to be standing out back. Here's what I'm going to ask. I'm pumped, all right? How do you guys feel about this thing? I mean, are you ready to get this thing done? Oh. If you're a guest, I hope what you've heard here, I'm sorry your first time is not a normal sermon, a Bible deal, but here's what I want to encourage you with as we wrap this up. God has called the church to be a movement to change the world. This conversation is just as important as anything I could ever preach and teach. If all we do here is come and consume my teaching, then we are not the church. We are a college for people to learn about the Bible. We are called to be a movement. And if you're a guest, we're inviting you to be a part of that with us. A part of a dream to go change a community, turn it upside down for the gospel, and to multiply that all over this county and this region. This is step one. And I pray that momentum is built. As we do this, we then launch into other communities with the same philosophy and turn the gospel loose across this land and change this region for the glory of Christ. That's what we're inviting you to come hang with us to do. And so it was famously said by a guy named, well, I won't tell you his name because you may not listen. But he said, nothing of eternal importance is ever accomplished without prayer. And so that's what I want to challenge us to begin to do. As you pray, God will lead you in how you're supposed to give. As you pray, God's going to lead you on how you're to serve and volunteer. He's going to lead me and my wife in the same area. Already is, and I know we'll continue. And so we need to pray. God opens doors in prayer. I don't understand prayer, but it's powerful. And so that's what I want us to do and not just rush out of here this morning. I've asked the band to come and lead us in a song. And I just want us to pray. To pray and ask God to move in our own lives and to prepare us. God, what do you want from us? To pray for Blake Harris and Chris Mintz as they start conversing with banks and try to come back with a plan on how we can proceed forward financially. Pray for Brent Boone and all that he's going to be helping us lead and working with these contractors and the architect and pulling that together as we do this design build. To pray for me as I try to oversee our pastors and trustees, because it's not just about a building, it's about your life group and multiplying disciples. And we can't put that on hold so we can get a building. That needs to be massively increased, not decreased. So we've got a lot of things to pray about. And all of those are things that if the Spirit of God will move, if He will move in us and through us, hell's gates cannot hold us back. The Scriptures promise it. The gates of hell cannot withstand the onslaught of God's people. And that's what I want to see happen. Amen? An onslaught of God's people that absolutely beats darkness back to where it belongs. And so we can do that, but we've got to pray.